Talk about some of the pitfalls that you see with actors that you've seen. I mean, we talked a little bit about
Oh,
it.
yeah. I mean, there's
That's a
so
lot of
many.
question.
There's so many, but here's some just off the top of my head. The first one is not having any financial planning. I think
Mm.
as actors, we often fall prey to this whole like loosey-goosey joke of like, oh, I'm really bad at math. There's a reason I'm an actor, and it's like, yeah, but math is a huge part of your life on a day-to-day basis. You having to fork out $5 for a cookie is also part of your financial planning because can you afford to pay $5 for a cookie?
Yeah.
So I think not having any financial stress strategy or any financial planning definitely comes out high for me as an actor because a lot of the times we prioritize craft and acting and learning how to be a good performer. And we forget all the business stuff that comes with it. For us to remain afloat as an actor, not just financially, but also mentally, emotionally, spiritually, you need to feel comfortable in your finances. Because if the
Yeah.
thought of going broke at the end of the month is there at the back of your mind, it's always going to be weighing you down, even performance wise. It's going to show in your
Yeah.
work.
You're gonna bring it
Um,
into the room, and it'd be like, it's almost like you got a hat, and be like, please, the
yeah,
job,
exactly.
please,
Exactly. Exactly. You hit the
instead
nail
of
on the
being
head
worried
there
about the
because
character.
there you go, because then you're going to be attaching a monetary opportunity cost to every acting job you go
Yeah.
into. I've fallen prey to it myself. The first time I received an audition for an acting job that paid really well, which, by the way, for us over here, commercials, we don't get paid as much as you guys do in the US.
Mm.
So a commercial that would pay around 12 to 15,000 in the US would probably pay us 1 to 2,000. Um,
Mm.
I've done the comparison of the rate sheet. So the first
Yeah.
time I received an acting job that said I would get paid 1,800, I was so overwhelmed at the idea of getting such a huge amount because up until then I'd only done acting jobs that paid $300 tops.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God, I have to book this. I have to book this. I have to book this. And I
Yeah.
carried that desperation and that expectation of compensation into the room, and I didn't book the job. And
Yeah.
I know for a fact that that's the reason I didn't book the job because even though I know that my performance was good, there had to have been something weighing it down. And to me, it's clear as day. It was that desperation. So I would say that the lack of financial planning is definitely a huge pitfall that actors kind of just let themselves lapse into. Um, in my journey of speaking with actors as a coach,
Mm.
every time we talk about their finances, everyone, almost, I would say 80 to 90% of them say that they currently live paycheck to paycheck and have no savings, which means that they get a paycheck at the end of the month. They have to spend it on rent, gas, bills, groceries, etc., acting classes, and then they run out of their income for the month. So it's really paycheck to paycheck to paycheck. To me, that is the biggest sign you'll ever need that you need to get your finances in check because you have to be saving at least a little bit every single
Yeah.
month to remain afloat. Um,
Yeah.
a second pitfall that I would have to say is I think this is such a ironic thing, but many actors I've spoken to are introverts. So,
Yeah.
they love meeting new people and engaging with people on a human level, but just at their core, they're introverts. They have social anxiety, they're shy, and they let that get in the way of them building connections and relationships in this business. Um, it's very important for us to realize that we are actors at the end of the day. So for us, being an extrovert and an introvert can be as easy as just having a switch that you turn on and off. You're an actor. Do it.
Yeah.
It's networking is a necessary evil. And I would say that I'm finally in the stage of my life where I no longer see it as an evil. I've reframed my thoughts around that to be that networking needs to be approached with the perspective of relationship building. And that's when it becomes a lot less icky, a lot less schmoozy. But so many actors I've spoken to, they still possess really outdated ideas of networking being this thing where you go to parties and clubs and you have to, schmooze and like talk people up and make empty
Yeah.
conversation and small talk. And that's just not how it is anymore. Like I said,
Yeah.
I think this move to the digital arena has revolutionized the entertainment industry forever, partially thanks to the pandemic. And now a lot of networking has become digital and online, which means that even as an introvert with social anxiety, um, you have access to all of these avenues where you can connect with people without having to put yourself in uncomfortable situations, and while still maintaining those boundaries for yourself where you're not extending yourself beyond a certain point just to build connections. Um, so all of this is a roundabout way of saying that actors often let their own predispositions, their personalities get in the way of networking. I think we need to reframe our perspective around networking and see it as something that could be really beneficial and healthy to our acting careers. And if I had to point out a third pitfall, um, I would absolutely say that it's self-selecting ourselves out of a system that's already broken.
Mm.
This is a phrase that I got from a casting director, Victor. I want to say this right, Victor Vasquez. I think I might be saying it wrong, but he said that this is especially in relation to actors who are people of color or belong to marginalized communities. Oftentimes, if we see a casting call that's like let's say black 18 to 25, so and so. And if you are a South Asian person seeing this casting call, we would not even consider submitting ourselves to this role.
Yeah.
And he said, but you're still a person of color. Who knows? You might be right for the role. We would rewrite you
Exactly.
for the role if you're perfect for it. Submit.
Yeah.
Stop self-selecting yourself out of the system that's already broken. So take a chance on yourself. There's so many flaws within this industry, this business, and the systems of it. Instead of just succumbing to external circumstances and saying that, oh, this is my fate, this is just how it is. Find the loopholes,
Yeah.
get creative with it, find places where you can insert yourself into a system that hasn't exactly been designed to include you.
Yeah. One thing I would add to that I see with a lot of actors that I talk to is a lot of them have this idea that they just want to kind of luck into the job and not have to do any work and just be like,
Yeah.
oh, I'll just come in and because they read that, Jim Carrey became discovered from an extra work thing. And it's like, oh, that's how it's going to be. Like, it's like, yeah, but if you really love this, you want to do the work so that you come in
Yes.
and you have an idea of what you're doing. Otherwise, you know, you're just it's just by chance. And like, how's the director going to
Exactly.
direct you? It's be like,
Exactly.
he can only do this. It's like,
Hmm.
like so many actors, don't want to memorize lines. I like what you said about, about class. You're right. If that's a struggle, you don't have to have classes,
Hmm.
but you should always be working on the craft in some ways, either doing a monologue or doing something so that you're staying there. Don't just sit there and, be like, well, I'm not getting cast, so I'm just not going to do
Yeah.
anything. It's like, okay, but what are you going
Yeah.
to do when you do get cast? You're gonna
Hmm.
be like, well, I messed around with stuff. I mean, like you can learn a lot from a monologue or from just, working with friends. It's I have an acting coach I work with, twice a week. And, all through the pandemic, we just worked on things and monologues and voice. And it just, there's so much you can learn from that. And it just kind of feels like a lot of
Absolutely.
actors just kind of want to luck into it. And it's like,
Mm.
what art do you know? There's no musician, there's no singer, there's nobody that just comes in. I like, would you trust a surgeon who just say, well, I took a couple of courses online. I watch YouTube, but I'm gonna be taking at your heart. You'd be like, get away
Yeah.
from me. You're not
I
ever
would.
doing it. So it's like,
I know.
yeah, it's like if
Imagine you're
it's
just
not
lying on
okay.
the operating table and some doctor's just like, hey, I'm not an expert, but I know a little bit about this. I would be terrified. I would run out of that room.
I yeah, I watched a YouTube video. I think this is how you do. Oh wait, that's your lungs. I'm sorry. Hold on, just give me a second here. You know, like if it's okay, if it's not okay there, why would it be okay in acting? Especially if you want to be at the professional level. You know, it's
Absolutely.
that seems to be my frustration. Where it's like
Mm,
they want these rewards, but they don't want to do anything to get it. And it's like, but
mm,
you need to do it. It's like what you were saying about
mm.
manifestation. Well, I'm just going to manifest it. It's like, okay, that's good. But if you're truly manifesting it, you're also working towards it because you believe it's going to
Yes.
happen. If you're just
Yes.
manifesting, it's like, well, I don't want to do any work.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna make it happen. You
Yeah.
know, I mean, that could technically happen in some ways, but you're making it harder for yourself. And I also question why you would want to
100%.
be an actor because you're just coming into like, oh, I'm just gonna wing it. You know? So
Yeah.
it's interesting.
Absolutely agree.
Yeah. So yeah.
It's
So that
it's like,
I
you know how when we were in school for math we used to, I don't know if you guys learned this in school as well, but we used
yeah
to have a chapter called statistics, and where we learned about
yeah
graphing and outliers on the graph. And for a kid who hated math in school, this is the one thing that I know for sure about it, is that a graph is always going to have outliers, but you do not base your entire theory off of off of those
yeah
outliers. And when actors tell me that, somebody got discovered as an extra on a set, or, this
yeah
person submitted a tape for a role when they were 16 years old and they got cast in a huge Netflix
yeah
series. And I'm like, but those are the outliers. How are you
yeah
so confident that you are the exception and not the rule? There's nothing
yeah
wrong with being the rule. Sometimes you are the exception, and that's fantastic, but your approach always has to be aligned with the assumption that you are the rule and not the exception. If not, you're going to continue playing, mind tricks on yourself to think that you're going to luck into this profession.
yeah. I mean, Miles Teller. I mean, they went into Strasbourg and they were like, here, they pulled him out. I mean, the teachers told us the story, and it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, okay, that worked for him, but it's like, is that the best way you want to approach it? You know, it's just with the financing and everything. They don't want to. There's this like hole there that they just want to kind of go into fantasy land, and it's like it's good to have that dream, but you also need to have an idea. People don't know this about Tom Cruise, but you know, when he was doing Top Gun, Val Kilmer talked about this. He would go home and he would work on the lines. He was
Mm,
always, you know, working harder so that, you know, he could do the take over and over again. It's like these things that just come up and it's just like, well, you know, so and so got it. It's like, yeah, but don't you want to be good enough to be able to just to do multiple takes? Because without training, you can't really do that. Even if you do get discovered, you're going to have to then play catch up because
yeah.
you don't have a foundation for what it is. And I find if you don't have a foundation for this, it's like you're just going to be relying on acting coaches to guide you through it because you don't have any vision of what is it that you want to bring to it. You're just going to, I mean, Leo
100%.
DiCaprio talked about that. He said the thing that took him the longest time was it's like, what do I bring to it? As opposed
Mm,
to just, you know, like, here's what's on the page. Like, well, what's not on that page? That's
yeah.
where the great acting comes from. Is like, what is not on that page that you can
Mm,
bring that the casting director, the director sees and goes, oh, wow, I didn't see that. And then they, you know, maybe you don't get
exactly.
that role, but they think about you for the next one, you know? So
Mm,
it's just this, you know, it's the same thing. Um,
yeah.
you
I'd love
mentioned,
to share an experience that I had with an actor a couple of days ago. And he
mm,
was interested in joining the full-time acting accelerator. I
mm,
qualify all of my students before I let them join the program. So you have to apply. Not everybody
good.
can join. And I just realized that he was too early on in his acting career to join. And the thing that tipped me off to it that he was too green was that he said he had no training. He had never taken an acting workshop in his life. He had never been to acting school. And I'm not saying that you have to fork out thousands of dollars to, have a conservatory
Yeah.
training or like to have an MFA, but take a couple of classes at least, or invest in an audition coach or something like that. And I offered him a free consultation instead. And I
Mm,
said, let's talk through instead your goals, your challenges, your obstacles, and see what the next best step for you would be, because I don't think it's joining this program. And during this consultation, bless his heart, I know that his heart is in the right place, but he came at me with a laundry list of actors who made it big without any formal actor training. Again, and I told him these are the
oh God.
outliers. These
Uh,
are the outliers. He was like, The Rock never went to an acting class. And I was like, well, The Rock is The Rock. He doesn't need to have gone to acting class to have made it big as an actor.
he was
Um,
in professional wrestling. That he had to do. He was doing acting there. I mean,
exactly.
That's where he was training. I mean, he wasn't
Yeah.
doing one-on-one thing, but I mean, to me, that was his training. So
Yeah.
it's like this
Exactly.
idea of like somebody didn't, in McConaughey's book, Matthew McConaughey, the American actor, I think
Mhm.
he
Yeah.
talks about how, when he got to Hollywood, went to his, he's like, I got to get an agent. And his friend said,
Mhm.
no, you can't do it like that. If you go in there like that, they're going to eat you alive. You can't let them know that you need them. It's that catch 22. And if you come in always wanting a job, or it's always about money or whatever, you're going to bring that into the room. You've got to bring in this calm vibe of like, whether I get the job or I don't get the job, it's fine, but I'm going to do my best
Yes.
work. And that's very
Yes.
hard to create. It took a long time. I mean, for me, you were talking about networking. That was a hard thing for me because I was very scared to, you know, do that, ask
Yeah.
questions or whatever, or be seen as vulnerable as I don't know everything. So I'm just like, they just want us to know everything. And it's like now with networking, you have Instagram, you have LinkedIn, you have all these places that you can, plus you have YouTube. You can watch these videos of people talking about acting. I mean, there's just countless ways to do it. Is it scary? Yes, it is. I mean, for me personally, just doing what I'm doing right now, it was scary to transition into interviewing because I was like, I don't know how to do this, but I know I can do this. And it's just like I just have to
Mhm.
get over that hump. And it's like, unfortunately, part of it is you have to, gonna have to cold call people. And sometimes you're gonna say no. And it's just the way it is. And it's the same thing in the acting business. They're
Yeah.
gonna say no, and that's okay. You just move on. You
Mm.
can't put your heart and soul into that one person and then do it. The same thing with an acting job where you just go, oh my God, if I don't get this, I'm not gonna, it's like, no. There's no such thing as a role like that. And if you do that to
Yeah.
yourself, you're putting yourself into this impossible task of like climbing this mountain that like no one can climb. This is just like
Mhm.
you, you're just like, if I don't get this, my life is over. And it's like, well, why do you do that for yourself? Yeah.
Yeah,
So I like what,
absolutely. It's one job. It's one job.
so
Your
I
life's not
love
going to be over.
exactly. It's one job and it's one, read about how many auditions people had to go to till they got like one thing. I mean, it's, it's, the game is staying in it the long term
Mm.
and being willing to do
Yeah.
it and not just putting your base and not doing like your friend that he brings up the rock. So had no acting or training. I want to be like him. And
I
it's like,
know.
okay, well, what are you
I
doing here?
know. Exactly.
What do you want me to
I
do it? You
know.
already have it figured out.
Exactly. And he also gave me a list of a couple of other kind of international actors that made it huge without any training. And I was like, well, have you tried to look at the flip side? Look at those massive A-list stars who do have years of training behind them. Now, if that's where you
Yeah.
want to be, you best believe that training is going to be one of the ingredients you need to get
Yeah.
there.
Yeah. How are you
Yeah,
going to act opposite Anthony Hopkins, who can just do it in his sleep? If you're just going to be like, well, I don't need
exactly.
any training. I'll just come in and
Exactly.
I'll just I'll just wing it. I'll just be natural and be like, well, one, you're also going to get into the pitfall of just playing yourself every time. And that's going to get really boring.
Exactly.
Now you could get into a
Yeah.
niche But usually the actors that fall into that, they either age themselves out of the role, or the public gets sick of them and they're like, well, what else you got?
Yeah.
You know, we're
Yeah.
bored.
And they'll exactly, there'll just be a label attached to you. And I can think of
Yeah.
a number of actors off of the top of my head who do this, who they're just labeled as like playing the same
Yeah.
character in every movie. It's like
Yeah.
just, and they're really just playing themselves. Like you said, they just default to what they know best and what they're most
Yeah,
comfortable with.
you're just playing a version of your celebrity, but it's like, if that's why you want to get into it, your heart's in the wrong place, because that's not the
Exactly.
idea, to just play
Exactly. As an
yourself.
actor, exactly. As an actor, when you're on stage or in front of the camera, you're essentially bringing out a toolbox. You know, you're accessing different tools in your toolkit or your toolbox to get
Yeah.
the job done. If you don't have training, your toolkit is sparse as heck. What are you
Yeah.
going to pull on? What are you going to pull out of when you need to do the scene? And I think a lot of those
Yeah.
toolkits you only get by attending classes and workshops. And one of my biggest piece of advice for actors when they're undergoing training is that if you're unable to afford full-time actor training, which is valid because it can be so expensive,
Yeah.
what you want to focus on instead of taking the same class for 2 to 3 years with the same coach, think about diversifying your actor training. So don't
Mm.
only take scene study classes, don't only take self-taping classes. You want to do a little bit of scene study, a little bit of self-taping, a little bit of improv, some comedy, some action, maybe some accent classes.
That is the best advice you could ever give an actor, because yes, they'll get stuck into just doing scene study, especially in this country.
Yeah.
Acting class is just considered scene study, and it's like, no, there's accents, there's improv, like you mentioned, which is really important. If you don't
Yeah,
understand a character, you can improv it and kind of find him there.
exactly.
If just doing scene study, and
Yeah.
there's also this danger that happens. A lot of teachers they'll coax them in to doing it. I had that happen. I was like, I finally had to be like, no, this is not, I'm not going to do this every 4 weeks, because I'm not learning
Yeah.
anything and I'm
Yeah.
not getting anything out of this. I need
Exactly.
more. And I was like, I'm focusing on
Yeah.
voice. And they were kind of upset with me, but
Yeah.
I was like, this is what you got to do. But yeah, you're right. They get into that habit of like, this is the actor training. And it's like, no, no, no. It can be diversify it,
Mm,
work on the voice. One of the things, the upsides that you have, is you speak 4 different languages. That's really good, because
yeah.
you know different. It's going to be much easier for you to do an accent, to behave in a different way, because language lends itself to behavior. So I mean, look at
Yes.
Anya Taylor Joy. That's one of the things
Mm,
I read. I was like, I think her father's Italian and her mother was
yeah.
British, and or no, Spanish, and they lived in London.
Mm,
It's like, okay, so she's been all around here. And here's another
yeah.
thing that I don't think actors do enough of, is read.
Hmm.
Reading is one of the
I
things that's
agree.
going to exercise the mind, and they're
Yeah.
like, I don't want to read. It's like, okay, if you don't want to read, then listen to an audiobook. But
Mm,
do something to exercise that, because that will teach you more than anything. But what helped
I
me
agree.
during the pandemic was just reading, you know, self-help books, but interesting ones, and it just would change your perception of the way you
Yes.
looked at things. And I think
Exactly.
that's something that actors, yeah,
Even the actors who do read, they limit themselves to acting related books. And you need to read non-acting related stuff and then find a way
yeah,
to relate it back to your profession so that you're not
exactly.
limiting your perspectives. But I accidentally cut you off. You were saying something.
No, 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 no. You were saying something. I thought I was finished.
Okay.
So
Okay,
getting back to
fantastic.
you now, who inspires you?
Oh God, I get this question
I
so
know that.
often,
I
and
know
I
that's. I know
wish,
that's a loaded question. I'm sorry.
yeah, it's not, I don't think it's loaded, but it's just, it's so hard to just narrow it down to one person. Um,
Mm,
there are a lot of fictional characters that inspire me. But in life, it really, and this is a thing that I've mentioned in a lot of my interviews. It's any artist who is kind of working consistently and ambitiously towards practicing their craft day in, day out inspires me. It doesn't make a difference if they're famous or not. They make the world a better place. In the
Yeah.
pandemic, when everything in the world had just gone to, to just rubble, and when things were dark, times were dark, the place that we turned to for comfort was art. Be it in the form of listening to music, watching Netflix, watching a movie, reading, painting. These are the things that we turn to comfort us at a time when nothing else worked. And that is why I think art is just so crucial in reminding us that there is beauty in this world, no matter how ugly or dark it gets. And any artist who works towards practicing that art and creating that art inspires me. I wish I could just put a name to this person and call it a day, but it would feel very reductive for me. I think everybody
Yeah.
who's working hard at this deserves to be acknowledged and celebrated.
That's a great answer. So, wrapping up here, I always ask everyone these questions, but do you have a beginning of the day routine?
I do. The people are gonna hate it, but I like to start I like to start my day slow. I mean, I know that the whole like hustle and grind thing is like really glamorized on Instagram and TikTok these days. Like everyone has a walking desk for some reason. Everyone's like walking on the treadmill while they do work, and they get up and they jump out of bed at 6 a.m. in the mornings and they make coffee and they get to work, and it's not for me. I used to be a huge morning person a couple of years ago. In fact, I would say just up until a year or two ago, where I used to wake up. Even throughout college, I'd be up at 4 a.m. in the morning, and I would jump out of bed, go for a run, come back, shower, get my day started by 6 a.m. And I'm not about that life anymore. My morning routine now is to wake up comfortably around 7:30, 8 a.m. I cook myself a beautiful breakfast and with coffee. Before that, I do a little bit of yoga around 15 to 20 minutes. I make the breakfast, I sit down with my breakfast, and I enjoy it with my favorite TV show, whatever I'm seeing at the time. Right now, it Suits. I'm rewatching it. And it puts me in the right mood for the day. It allows me to start the day on a good note and on a really positive note. And I'm finally in a space where I'm comfortable, and not occupied by the thoughts of all the things I have to do in the day, in the morning itself. I allow myself an hour and a half to 2 hours in the morning to just have a peaceful start to the day. And once I've had those 2 hours to myself, I slowly ease into work and get my tasks done for the day. So that's my morning routine.
That's awesome. That's great. That's very
Thank you.
similar to what I do. Do you have a
Oh, I
nighttime
love that.
routine?
It's a similar thing. So try to wrap up. I think right now, because I've transitioned into being an acting coach as well, and because it's
Mhm.
still first 6 months of my business, I'm just about at the end stage of laying down the foundation of my business, which is why I tend to work 14 to 15-hour days. I've reduced that, and now I end my workday around 10 p.m. And at 10 p.m., I turn off my phone. So I don't check my phone thereafter. I do the same thing. I put on an episode of a TV show that I really love, and I accompany it. And this is so embarrassing. I always eat dessert every night. It's a
Mm.
non-negotiable for me. So I'll have either ice cream or cake or frozen fruit or, something sweet to just end my day, and I spend around 2 hours watching something that I really love. I go to bed around midnight.
Awesome. That's
Yeah,
great. Do you meditate?
I don't meditate. I wish I did more of it. I've
Mm.
tried it, and I think that it's still something, it's an area of improvement for me. I still need to work on it. I often find my mind still racing when I meditate. I still have thoughts going in and out, and I don't know whether, and I know that, and I understand that the whole point of meditation is not to have an empty empty head. Like the
Yeah.
idea is not to clear your thoughts, but it's to really just process. And I struggle to come to terms with that because I become uncomfortable with my mind racing with thoughts while I'm trying to meditate. So I haven't been able to reach that stage of acceptance of just
Yeah.
this is how my mind is. Yeah. Working on it. So I don't meditate every day, but I'm hoping to incorporate it into my routine at least 1 to 2 times a week just to start.
That's great. That's great. I mean,
Yeah.
it's hard. I make myself meditate. Well, I do an hour right now. I'm doing an hour and 15 of meditation
Wow.
a day, and it's too much. I'm gonna put it down to like 45 minutes. I mean, I listen to Joe Dispenza's recordings, so he's like
Huh?
going through it all, and it's just like I've been kind of doing because I film these. I talk about them afterwards on YouTube. Is I kind of wanted to get somebody something if they were going through this, what is it like, so that they could,
Mm.
follow around. So I do one of the Joe Dispenza's meditations for like 40 days, and then I move on to the next one. And I've been on this one for like 40 days, and I'm just like, kind of like, okay, once again, I need to switch to another one because an hour and 15 is hard.
Yeah.
Then I do some indirect hypnosis where one of the people I interviewed was Jessica Porter, um, Hypnosis for Actors. She wrote this book,
Mm.
and I do her work, and then I also do Paul McKenna. So it's like almost 2 hours of meditation. It's like, okay, it's too much. I got to figure out a way to, it's almost like I'm a monk here, and it's like, okay,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
you have to stop everything to go do that and go sit in there, and it's like it's asking a lot, an hour and 15 every
Mm.
day. Like I wouldn't ask that of other people, but I'm crazy like that. But that's great though that you're recognizing, what it is. It's to me, it's like whatever works. There's so many different
Mm.
disciplines. There's the mudras. There's so many different ways to meditate. There's no right or wrong way. It's whatever works for you. And that's kind of what I like about it.
Yeah.
Is it just,
Yeah.
it could be anything. What are you reading
So I'm
currently?
currently reading this book called
Mm,
Factfulness. It's a really
yeah,
thick,
another book.
thick book that I got as a birthday gift last year from my dad. And
Yeah.
at the time, I was just so knee deep in work that I never found the chance to read it. So it's been 3 months since I was gifted this book, and I finally got around to reading it. Um, Again, it's I think because I never grew up really inclined to math and science, it took me some time to kind of get
Mm,
acquainted with how the language and the verbiage in the book flows. But now that I have, I'm really starting to enjoy it. It's not something I would typically read, um,
mm,
because I don't particularly enjoy nonfiction unless it's a self-help book. And even
mm,
self-help books, I have a very specific type that I like. So I'm more inclined towards fiction because I just love
mm.
getting lost in like the world of a narrative.
Yeah.
But it's new for me, and I'm kind of enjoying exploring this uncharted territory of reading such a factual and dense book.
Wow. Cool. Cool. What are you
Yeah.
listening to right now?
Listening to, well, I didn't used to be big on podcasts, but I'm currently listening to this acting podcast called Dear Multi Hyphenate.
Mm,
I've gotten into it more in the past few months, so I really enjoy Sam Valentine's One Broke Actress podcast. I
mm,
really like Brian Break's character, which is by Brian Pataka. But my current favorite is definitely Dear Multi Hyphenate because it's something I identify with. I think I don't just wear one hat, and I love doing different things, at the same time. But apart
yeah.
from podcasts, I really just listen to in my friends make fun of this all the time, but my playlist is just the most chaotic mishmash of genres and types. And it's just I don't have a particular fondness or
Yeah.
liking for any artist or any genre. As long as I like a song,
Yeah.
I listen to it on loop until I get tired of it.
Yeah. That's cool.
Yeah.
Take it
Yeah.
that, yeah. That's
Yeah. I
cool.
think, but The song that I just kind of got hooked onto last night is called "Love Is Mystical" by Cold War Kids, and I've
Mm.
heard it like 8 times since last night, and I know that I will hear it 8 times more today and 8 times more tomorrow, and by the end of the week, I'll have it out of my
You'll hate
system.
it. And then you'll hate
I'll
the
have it out
song.
of my system. Yeah, yeah.
What are you watching now? We
What
kind
about
of
it? It
answered this, but
Suits. Yeah,
Suits.
Suits. But
Cool.
I'm already on season 9. I'm a huge binge watcher. So once I
Cool.
start a show, it's I am driven to finish it within a couple of weeks. So it's 9 seasons long. I would say a normal human
Wow.
person would take at least a month or two to finish it. It's taken me a grand total of 11 days. It's just binging, binging, binging. But yeah, after Suits,
That's
I have
amazing.
the next thing up on my list is the Spanish show called Sky Rojo. It just
Hmm.
the third season of it just dropped last week, and I'm hoping to catch up on it. I really enjoy watching content in different languages, international languages. It's one of
Yeah.
the main avenues of how I became fluent in Spanish because I think you can learn it in an educational space well, but the way you learn how to become conversational and fluent with it is by consuming a lot of film, TV, and music in the language so that you understand how the language flows. Not just how it sounds, but how it flows.
Yeah. That's good.
Yeah,
That's that's what my acting teacher's making me do. Is he's making
yeah.
me learn German for the lower
Oh,
sounds in the voice. He's like, you need that.
yeah,
He's like, you have to learn a foreign language. So I'm like on Duolingo, and I've been doing it like 900 days, but it's like it's still like not. I can kind of read it, and I'm very familiar with it, but it's like now
yeah,
it's like I need to do what you're saying is
yeah.
watch films and get to that point. Yeah.
Exactly. There
So
comes a point where you don't even feel kind of reliant on the subtitles to understand what's going on. And it's such a gratifying experience.
yeah,
900 days on Duolingo is insanity. That is fantastic. I'm currently on 670 days. And I thought
that's that's
I
good.
was a beast. Yours is
That's good.
amazing.
I mean, when I started, in the pandemic, I'm like, all right, I'm gonna do this every day, every day, every day, every day, and it's
Yeah.
like I'm in one of those tournaments now, and it's like there's like one person there that like you could tell like that's all they do is Duolingo, and it's like how am I gonna reach that number? Like I'd have to like
I
sit here and
know.
just be like
Yeah.
playing Duolingo every minute. It'd
I
be like,
know.
and then it kind of defeats the purpose. It's like, okay, am I doing this because I want to, get the highest score? Or am I doing this because I want to
Yeah.
learn the language? So it's yeah,
Right. Right.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
awesome, awesome. I love that you're incorporating a new language into your repertoire.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It helps. It's one of
Yeah,
that's another thing actors need to do, especially in America, is learn another
yeah,
language. Doesn't matter what it is, find that language and it'll teach you to speak a different way, you know.
absolutely.
Yeah. So, how can people reach you?
Well, the easiest way is really Instagram because I'm super active on Instagram. Um, I would say, okay, so my handle is it's Shivani Desai, so ITSSHIVANIDESAI. Or for any inquiries, you can always email me. If you go onto my Instagram profile, you will see two email options. So one is for acting work, and the second is for coaching inquiries.
Mm,
A little less known place that I love to chat with people is also LinkedIn, which I think is severely underutilized by creatives and actors because people see it as a platform for the corporate world. Here's the
yeah.
thing. I mean, because it's mostly overpopulated by people in the corporate world, you'll stand out there as an artist. So that's where you should be. So yeah, you
Yeah.
can also reach me on LinkedIn. I'm there with my full name, Shivani Desai.
All right. Well, thank you so much for
Yeah,
doing this. This has been
my
great.
pleasure. Likewise, I had
All
so much
right.
fun speaking with you, Justin.
Thank you. Thank you.